Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome. Good morning and welcome. Let me say welcome to anyone who's joining. Before I do that, let me turn the music down. Let me say welcome to anybody that's joining as a replay viewer. I'm so glad you're here. Go ahead and leave your mark by leaving a hashtag replay in the public comments. Also, if you're brand new, let us know that in the comments as well. Then click the subscribe button right now. Then enable the notifications by clicking on the little bell so that you don't miss anything in the future. I am so glad you are here. My. Welcome to those of you who are here live. Go ahead and begin to start sharing the broadcast for me. Thank you for helping me with that. I appreciate you. Let me get it out as well. I got it in some places, but let me finish getting that out. Y'all, we are tracking. We're going to be praying in the spirit, as is our custom to do so. I will share whatever is on the heart of the Lord as he gives it to me. And then we will read the word of God. I believe that we will be able to finish up 1 Kings today. So be ready to stick with me today as I do that. So for those of you who are here live, number one, go ahead and greet me in whatever way you do in your part of the world. Number two, let me know where in the world you are joining in from. Number three, help me by clicking the little thumbs up on the screen. About half of you have done that so far. And number four, help me to share this broadcast far and wide. Number five, if you are, let me know I'm stirred up. Tell me in the comments, I'm stirred up, and whatever other declarations you want to make this morning. Good morning, my lovely cousin. Say, I'm stirred up. The wait is over. It's just a mountain. I have been catapulted. It is finished. Yes, indeed it is. Hallelujah. Just looking at the comments here. Favored. Yes, I am favored. My status has changed. Happy congratulations. Yes. I believe it is a season of congratulations, to be honest. Hallelujah. Go ahead and get that out. So let's go ahead and begin to pray in the Holy Ghost because we have quite a bit of reading to do this morning. Rakatamandi ele bako tekele bata, rakatamandi ele bako tekele bataya, rande ki ie keshe, rakatamandi ele bako tekele bataya, roko shandi ele bako tekele bata, rakatamandi ele bako tekele bataya, rekete makarakata, rekete mandi ele bako tekele bata, rekete ele bako tekele bataya, rekete makarakata, Randi elebakote kelebata, rekete yelebakore kerebataya, rekete yelebakore kerebata, rakatamandi yelebakode kerebataya, rekete makarakata, randi yelebakode kerebataya, rekete yelebakore kerebata, randi yelebakote kerebata, rakatamandi yelebakote kelebataya, rekete yelebakore kerebata, randi yelebakote kelebataya, rekete makarakata, yele de bakore kerebataya, randi yelebakode kerebata, randi yelebakore kerebataya, rekete makarakata, rekete yelebakore kerebata, randi yelebakode kerebata, Rakata yeleba kerebata, Randi yeleba de kerebataya, Rekete yeleba kerebata, Randi yeleba de kerebataya, Rekete makarakata, Randi yeleba de kerebata, Rekete yeleba kerebata, Yele de kerebata, Randi yeleba de kerebataya, Randi yeleba kerebataya, Rakatamandi yeleba de kerebata, Rekete makarakata, Randi bako de kerebataya. Rekete yelebakore kerebata. Randi yelebako te kerebataya. Rakatamandi yelebako de kerebata. Yele de bakore kerebataya. Rakatamandi yelebako te kerebata. Rakatamandi elebakote kelebataya. Rekete yelebakore kerebataya. Rakatamandi elebakore kerebataya. Rekete yelebakore kerebata. Randi elebakode kerebataya. Rekete makarakataya lebakore kerebata. Rekete mandi elebakode kerebata. Rekete yelebakode kerebata. Rakatamandi elebakote kelebataya. Randi elebakote kerebataya. Rekete yalabakore kerebataya. Rekete yalabakode kerebata. Rakatamandi yelebakote kelebata. Yele de bakore kerebata. Randi yelebakote kelebata. Yele de bakore kerebataya. Rekete yalabakode kerebata. Yele de bakore kerebataya. Randi yelebakode ke. Rakatamandi elebakote kelebata, rekete elebakore kelebata, randi elebakote kelebataya, randi elebakote kelebata, rakatamandi elebakote kelebata, rande keyata makarakata, randi elebakote kelebata, rekete elebakore kelebataya, randi elebakode kelebata, rakatamandi elebakote kelebata, rekete elebakore kelebata, randi elebakote kelebataya, rekete elebakota kandi arabata, yele de bakore kelebata, yele bakote kelebataya, yele de bakore kelebata, rakatamandi elebakote kelebata, yele de bakore kelebata, yele bakore kelebataya, rakatamandi elebakode kelebataya, yele de bakore kelebata, yete makarakata, randi elebakote kelebata, yelebakore kelebataya, randi elebakote kelebata. Rakataya labakore kerebata, randi elebakore kerebataya, rekete yalabakode kerebataya, rakatamandi elebakote kelebata, yelebakore kerebataya, rakatamandi elebakote kelebata, yelebakore kerebata, randi elebakode kelebata, yelebakore kerebata, yandi elebakote kelebata, yele de bakore kerebata, yandi elebakote kelebata. Yele bakore kede bataya, raka samandi yele bakote kele bata, yele bakore kede bataya, randi yele bakote kele bata, yele bakore kede bataya, raka samandi yele bakote kele bataya, yele bakore kede bata, rekete yara bataya, randi yele bakote kele bataya, raka samandi yele bakote kele bata, yele bakore kede bata, raka samandi yele bakote kele bata, yele bakare kere batai, rekete yala bataya, randi yele bakote kele batai. Rekete yele bakore kerebata, rakatamandi yele bakote kele bataya, rakatamandi yele bakote kele bataya, rekete yele bakore kerebata, rangri yandia da bakore kerebataya, rekete yele bataya, rekete yele bakote kerebataya, yele bakore kerebata, yele bakore kerebataya, rakatamandi yele bakote kele bata, yele bakore kerebataya, rekete yara bakote kerebata, yala bakote kede bataya, randi yele bakote kele bata, yele bakore kede bataya, randi yele bakote kele bata, yede bakore kede bataya, rekete mandi yele bakote kede bata, rakata ma yete mandi yele bakote kede bataya, rekete yele bataya, yede bakore kede bata, rakata mandi yele bakote kede bataya. Rakataya labakode kerebata, rekete yelebakode kerebataya, rekete yelebakode kerebata, randi yelebakode kerebataya, yelebakare kerebata, randi yelebakote kerebataya, yelebakore kerebata, rakatamandi yelebakote kerebata, yelebakode kerebata, rakatamandi yelebakote kerebata, yelebakore kerebata, yelebakare kerebataya, rakatamandi yelebakote kelebataya, yedebakore kerebata, yedebakore kerebata, yelebakore kerebataya, randi yelebakote kelebata, rakatamandi yelebakote kerebataya. Yelebakorekedebata, Rakatamandi Elebakote Kelebataya, Yelebakorekedebata, Rakatamandi Elebakote Kedebata, Rakatamandi Elebakote Kedebata, Yelebakorekedebata, Reketemandi Elebakote Kelebata, Yelebakorekedebata, Randi Elebakote Kelebata, Rekete Mande Ki Ekeshete, Rekete Makarakata, Yadabakorekedebataya, Rakatamandi Elebakote Kelebata, Yelebakote Kedebatai, Yatamandi Elebakote Kelebata, Yelebakorekedebataya, Randi Elebakote Kelebataya, Yeledebakode Kedebata, Yandi Elebakote Kelemandia, Reketi Elebakote Kelebata, Yadabakote Kedebataya, Rakatayandi Elebakote Ke. Yadabakorekedebata, Rakatamandi elebakote kelebetaya, Rekiti elebakode kedebata, Yandi elebakote kelebataya, Rakatamande ki ekeshe, Roko shandi elebata, Yalabakode kedebataya, Randi elebakode kelebataya, Randi elebakode kelebatai, Rekete makarakata, Yandi elebakote keya, Rakatiyalabataya, Reketiyalabata, Yedabakorekedebataya, Reketiyalabataya, Reketiyalabata, Yedabakorekedebatai, Reketiyalabata, Yandi Yedabakotekedebataya. Yalabakorekedebataya, Labakorekedebataya, Randi Elebakotekelebata, Yandi Elebakorekedebataya, Rakatamandi Elebakotekelebata, Yadabakorekedebata, Rakatamandi Elebakotekedebataya, Roko Shata Mandeki Eke Shata, Yandi Elebakotekelebataya, Rakatamandi Elebakotekeya, Rakatamandi Elebakode Kedebataya. Rakatamandi elebakote kerebata, Rakatamande ki ekeshata, Yelemakore kerebataya, Randi elebakote kerebataya, Rekete elebakode kerebata, Yandi elebakode kerebataya, Randi elebakode kerebata, Yadabakore kerebataya, Randi elebakode kerebataya, Rekete elebakode kerebata, Randi elebakode kerebataya, Randi elebakode kerebataya, Rekete elebataya, Rakatamandi elebakode kerebatai, Rekete elebata, Randi elebakote kerebata, Rakatamandi elebakote kerebata, Yeledebakore kerebataya, Randi elebakote kerebata, Randi elebakote kerebata, Yedebakore kerebataya, Roko shande kiarabataya, Randi elebakote kerebata. Rakatamandi elebakote kelebata, Randi elebakote kelebata, Yadabakare kelebataya, Randi elebakote kelebatai, Rakatamandi elebakote kelebata, Rakatamandi elebakote keya, Rakatamandi elebakote keya, Rakataya elebakote keya, Randi elebakote keya rabata, Yadabakare kelebataya, Randi elebakote kelebata, Yedabakore kerebataya, Rakatamandi Yadabakore kerebata, Randi elebakote kerebataya, Rakatamandi elebakote keya, Roko shande ki ekeshete, Randi elebakote kerebatai, Rakatamandi elebakote kerebata. Roko shandia korekete makarakaya yadabakote ke yadabatai rakatamandi yalabakote kedebata yadabakore kedebataya rakatamandi yalabakote kedebata yadabakohe kedebataya randi yalabakote kedebata yandi yalabakote kedebataya yadadadadabakosheteya Rakatamandi elebako de kerebataya. Randi elebako de kerebata. Randi elebako de kerebataya. Rakatamandi elebako tekeya. Rakatamandi elebako tekeya. Rakatamandi elebako. Reketema. Yatamandi ekeshe. Rekete elebata. Yadabako de kerebataya. Rekete elebataya. Yandi elebako de kerebata. Rakatamandi alabakore kedebataya labakore ke rekete mandi alabakote kedebataya rakataya labataya yandi alabakote kedebata rakatamandi alabakoshe teya yedebakore kedebata yandi alabakote ke rekete alabata rakatamandi alabakoshe teya yedebakore kedebata Rakatamandi elebakote kerebata. Rakatamandi elebakote kerebataya. Rekete elebakote kerebata. Yelebakote kerebata. Rakata yelebata. Yandi elebakote kerebata. Rakata yelebata. Yelebakosheteya. Rekete yelebataya. Yandabakote kerebata. Rakatamandi elebakote keya. Yete mandi elebakote ke elebakote ke randi akarakata yata mandi elebakore kerebataya rakata mande ki elebataya Rakatamandi alabakote kelebata. Rakatamandi alabakore kelebataya. Rakata yelebata. Yetemandi alabakoshete. Rekete yelebata. Rakatamandi alabako. Rakataya. Yande ki alabataya. Yedebakote ke. Rekete mandi alabakoshete. Rakatamandi alabakoshete. Rekete yelebataya. Yedabakore kedabata, rakata yalabata, randi yadabakore kedabataya. Rakatamandi alabako de kerebataya. Rakatamandi alabako de kerebataya. Rekiti mandi alabako teke. Rekiti alabataya. Randi alabako de kerebataya. Rakatamandi alabako de kerebataya. Rakatamandi ikeshata. Yatamandi alabako de kerebataya. Rokoshandi alabako de kerebataya. Rakatamandi Ialabakoshataya. Oh God. You know, in this moment, it's not even so much as what I hear. And I am hearing from God. All of my promises are yes and amen. That's all I'm hearing. But it's not so much what I'm hearing, it's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling the assurance of God. I'm feeling the assurance of God and his reminder that he has a track record of doing us good. I'm feeling his assurance that he will never leave us or never forsake us, that he will not disappoint us. I'm just feeling such an assurance from God that it's all working out for his good. I'm feeling the assurance of God concerning unsettled things, things that haven't panned out quite like we expected it. But there's an assurance that God has a plan far greater than what we can imagine. I'm feeling that level of assurance from God. I'm feeling an assurance that God is coming through with unexpected responses. I'm thinking of my baby brother and the years of prayers. I don't even know how many prayers I've prayed concerning him. But it's not just my prayers, even prayers my mother prayed before she graduated to heaven. And to speak to him a few days ago, and to be speaking to a totally different person, a person understanding the God I serve and wanting to understand the God that I serve. And I think of the years of uncertainty that have now morphed into God's assurance that He's always had it in control. That's the level of assurance that I feel God showing up with today. That's what I feel happening in this moment. So I say to you this morning, you have a right to hope beyond all hope, to dream beyond all dreams, to believe for the unbelievable. There's an assurance of God that His promises are yes and amen. Amen, meaning so be it. It is done. It is finished. Mm, my God, Jesus, my God, my God, Jesus. God is with us, people. God is with us. Oh, God. Mm, mm, Jesus. Mm. We're going to finish reading First Kings, lengthy reading, but I think we will get done with it before the next half hour. Well, not at the top of the hour, but after. But I have all confidence that we can get all the way through it. Thank you for those of you who are able to stick with me all the way through. We're going somewhere. It's the 18th of December, and we're moving right along. Ooh, y'all, we're working. We are working. We are working. We are working. I believe Chris is here. Y'all can tell me, am I correct that we did finish? We stopped at chapter 13. We finished chapter 13 and we're starting at chapter 14 today. I believe that's where I left off because we read about the old prophet, the lion prophet, yesterday in chapter 13 for sure. Okay. Hey, Jennifer Thomas. Good to see you on. Okay, got some water here. Mm. Whew. I just feel good in my spirit. All right, let's do this. Let's do it. About the same time, Abijah, Jeroboam's son, became very ill. He said to his wife, "Get up quickly and dress in a disguise so that no one will know you are my wife. Then travel as fast as you can to Shiloh, where the prophet Ahijah is dwelling. He is the one who prophesied that I would be king of these people. Pack 10 loaves of bread, a few cakes, and a honey jar. Go find him quickly. He should be able to prophesy the boy's fate." Jeroboam's wife did this urgent thing. She traveled quickly to Shiloh and found the dwelling place of Ahijah. Ahijah was blind in his old age and could not see a thing. The Eternal One had already told Ahijah, Jeroboam's wife is on her way to ask you to prophesy the fate of her boy who is ill. This is what you are to say to her, but beware when she comes to your house. She will pretend to be someone else. Ahijah heard her footsteps come into his house, and he called out to her. He just said, "Come inside. You're Jeroboam's wife, but why do you wear a disguise? I have an urgent and severe message for you from the Eternal One. Go back to Jeroboam right now and tell him this is the message of the Eternal One, the God of Israel. I appointed you from the community and granted you leadership over my people Israel. I stripped the kingdom out from under the house of David and I handed it over to you, but you have committed evil which exceeds those before you. And you have not been an honorable servant like David, for he honored my laws and gave his entire heart to me. Unlike you, he sought to do my will. You have made yourself other gods and cast false idols in their honor. You have aroused my wrath by putting me behind you. Therefore, beware. I will bring destruction to Jeroboam's house, and I will keep every Israelite man, both free and slave, away from him. I will wipe out Jeroboam's house, just as one burns the dung from animals, so his house will be burned up and wiped out. There will be nothing left of his house. All who remain devoted to Jeroboam, if they die in the city, will be devoured by dogs. If they die in the fields, they will be devoured by birds of the heavens. The Eternal One has already said that is what will happen. Get up quickly and go back to your home as soon as you set foot in the city. Your son will die. All of Israel will grieve for him and bury him. He is the only member of Jeroboam's family who will have a proper burial, for he was the only one within Jeroboam's house in whom the eternal God of Israel found something good. The Eternal will appoint for himself a new king over Israel, and this new king will separate the kingdom from Jeroboam's house from this day and beyond. The Eternal One will strike Israel, and Israel will be rattled just as water rattles a reed. The Eternal One will tear out Israel from his promised land given to their ancestors, and he will scatter them beyond the Euphrates River. He will do this because they have crafted their sacred poles and aroused the fiery wrath of the Eternal One. He will abandon Israel because of Jeroboam's wickedness, which caused all of Israel to be wicked as well. Jeroboam's wife then got up and traveled to Tirzah. As soon as she stepped into the house, her son died. All Israel buried him and grieved for him, just as the Eternal One said they would in the message he gave through the prophet Ahijah. Is not the rest of Jeroboam's story how he caused war, as well as the general history of his actions and reign, documented in the book of the Chronicles of Israel's kings? Jeroboam ruled over Israel for 22 years. Then he left this world to sleep with his father's, Jeroboam's son, Nadab, then inherited the throne. Solomon's son, Rehoboam, ruled over Judah. He was granted kingship when he was 41 years old, and he ruled 17 years. He lived out his reign in Jerusalem, the city which the Eternal chose from all of Israel's tribes as the dwelling place for his name. His mother was Naamah, the Ammonitess, one of Solomon's foreign wives, Judah was also wicked in the Eternal's eyes. Their wickedness aroused his jealousy more than the wickedness of their ancestors combined. They constructed high places and crafted holy pillars. They infected the pure earth with their sacred poles on every mountain and beneath every beautiful tree. There were also temple prostitutes who worked throughout the land. They followed the examples of the nations and were wicked, just as the nations were before the arrival of the Israelites. During the 5th year of Rehoboam's reign, Shishak, Egypt's king, waged war against Jerusalem. He stole all the treasures from the Eternal's temple and from the palace. He stole everything, even the golden shields Solomon had crafted. King Rehoboam crafted bronze shield to replace the golden shields. He put shields in the hands of the leaders of the guard, who stood guard at the entrance of the palace. On ceremonial occasions, such as the king entered the Eternal's temple, the guards carried the shields. They would then return the shields to their room. Is not the rest of Rehoboam's story documented in the book of the Chronicles of Judah's kings? There were always wars taking place between Rehoboam and Jeroboam. Rehoboam left this world to sleep with the fathers and was laid to rest with his ancestors in the city of David. His mother was called Naamah the Ammonitess. Then his son Abijam inherited the throne. Pardon me. I need to find my purse. Oh, it must be downstairs. Oh, chapter 15. Give me a second, y'all. Chapter 15. During the 18th year of Jeroboam's reign, Jeroboam was Nebat's son. Abijam took over the throne of Judah. Abijam reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother was Maacah, Abishalom's daughter. Abijam indulged in the same wicked things as his father did. His heart did not wholly belong to the Eternal One, his God, as his ancestor David's heart had. Nevertheless, the Eternal One, his God, left the lamp of his presence in Jerusalem for David's sake, so that he might allow his son to grow up there and to make a strong foundation for Jerusalem. David did what was good in the eyes of the Eternal, for he did not abandon the commands of the Eternal during his lifetime. With the exception of the incident with Uriah the Hittite, the war between Rehoboam's and Jeroboam's people continued during Abijam's entire lifetime. Is not the rest of Abijam's story documented in the book of the Chronicles of Judah's kings, how war continued between Abijam and Jeroboam? Abijam left this world to sleep with his fathers, and they laid him to rest in the city of David, as was the tradition. His son Asa then inherited the throne. During the 20th year of Israel's king Jeroboam, Asa took over the throne in Judah. He ruled for 41 years in Jerusalem. His mother was Maacah, Abishalom's daughter. Asa did what was good in the Eternal's eyes, just as his ancestor David had. He eliminated cult prostitution throughout the land, and he destroyed every idol his fathers had crafted. He also took away his mother's position as queen mother because she, Maacah, had made a corrupt and vile image honoring the goddess Asherah. Asa stripped down the goddess's image and set fire to it in the trash heap beside the Kidron stream. The high places were left alone. Asa did not touch them, but his heart belonged wholly to the Eternal One for his entire life. He transported silver and gold and objects into the Eternal's temple, replacing those that Shishak had taken. He dedicated old things of his fathers as well as his own new things. There was war continually between Asa and Baasha, Israel's king, who took the throne in a coup against Nadab during their reigns. Baasha, Israel's king, challenged Judah and fortified Ramah. He built up the region so that no one could approach or leave Asa, Judah's king. Asa then gathered up all the silver and gold from the treasuries in the Eternal's temple and in the king's house. He handed it all over to those who were in his service. King Asa told them to go see Ben-Hadad, son of Tabramon, and grandson of Hezion, Aram's king, in Damascus. Asa said to Ben-Hadad, "Let us make an agreement, just as my father and your father did. I offer you gifts of silver and gold and request that you break your agreement with Baasha, Israel's king. Then he will leave me alone, and both you and I will benefit from the deal." Ben-Hadad heard King Asa's request and immediately dispatched military leaders to wage war against Israel's cities. They conquered Ijon, Dan, Abel Beth Maacah, all of Chinneroth, and all of Naphtali. Baasha received word of this and immediately stopped fortifying Ramah as an outpost against Asa. Then he stayed in Tirzah. When King Asa heard it, he made a declaration to Judah. There was not a single citizen or foreigner who did not hear his words. Everyone tore down the fortifications around Ramah. Baasha had been using large rocks and timber. King Asa then fortified his own cities of Geba of Benjamin and Mizpah with those rocks and timbers. Is not the rest of Asa's story, his actions, strengths, and records of cities built, documented in the book of Chronicles of Judah's kings? When he was an old man, his feet were struck with a horrible disease. And Asa left this world to sleep with his fathers and was laid with them to rest in the city of David. His son Jehoshaphat then inherited the throne. Jeroboam's son Nadab took over Israel's throne during the second year of Asa's reign over Judah. Nadab ruled Israel for 2 years. He committed evil in the eyes of the Eternal One, walking the wicked path of his father and causing the Israelites to live sinful lives. Baasha, Ahijah's son, of the house of Issachar, plotted against him. Baasha killed his own anointed king, Nadab, at Gibbethon in Philistia. He did this while Nadab was leading Israel in a siege against Gibbethon. Baasha struck Nadab down during the third year of Asa's reign over Judah, and Baasha took Nadab's place on the throne. As soon as he gained the power of the throne, he killed the entire family of Jeroboam. He did not allow a single person to live. No one remained to challenge his throne. He annihilated them all, just as the Eternal had instructed throughout his servants, Ahijah the Shilonite. He did this because of Jeroboam's abhorrent wickedness that caused the Israelites to live sinful lives that incurred the wrath of the eternal God of Israel. Is not the rest of Nadab's story, his actions and lasting legacy, documented in the book of the Chronicles of Israel's kings? Asa and Baasha, Israel's king, warred against each other for their entire reigns. During the third year of Asa's reign over Judah, Baasha, Ahijah's son, became Israel's king. He ruled from Tirzah for 24 years. He committed evil in the Eternal's eyes, walking the wicked path of Jeroboam and causing the Israelites to live sinful lives. Chapter 16. The Eternal's message came to Jehu, Hanani's son, against Baasha. The Eternal One said, "I gave you an amazing opportunity, Baasha. I lifted you up from the dirt of the ground and appointed you to lead my people Israel, but you have been foolish, have embraced the same path as Jeroboam, and have caused my people Israel to live sinful lives. You have provoked my wrath against their wickedness. Therefore, I will devour you and all who serve you and belong to you. I will do to your house what I did to the house of Jeroboam, Nebat's son. The hungry dogs will devour the remains of all those who belong to you if they die within the city walls. The birds in the sky will swoop down and eat up the remains of all those who belong to you if they die in the fields." Is not the rest of Baasha's story, his actions, and lasting legacy documented in the book of Chronicles of Israel's kings. Baasha left this world to sleep with his fathers and was laid to rest in Tirzah. His son Elah then inherited the throne. So that is how it happened. The Eternal's message, which he gave through the prophet Jehu, Hanani's son, challenged Baasha and all those who belonged to him and served him. This took place because of the abhorrent wickedness he committed in the Eternal's eyes. By his wicked deeds and by embracing the same wickedness as Jeroboam, Baasha provoked the anger of the Eternal. During the 26th year of King Asa's reign, Elah, Baasha's son, took over the throne of Israel in Tirzah. He ruled 2 years. Zimri, Elah's servant, who was in charge of half his chariots, plotted against Elah. Elah was drinking excessively in Tirzah at Arza's house. Tirzah was in Arza's control. Zimri murdered Elah during the 27th year of Asa's reign over Judah, and he inherited the throne. As soon as Zimri became king and gained the power of the throne, he killed every male in Baasha's family. He did not leave a single survivor, no family or friends or servants to challenge his claim to the throne. Zimri demolished Baasha's entire household, just as the Eternal had said in his message against Baasha that he gave through the prophet Jehu. He did this because of all the abhorrent wickedness committed by Baasha and by his son Elah, which caused the Israelites to live sinful lives. This wickedness with their idols invoked the wrath of the eternal God of Israel. Is not the rest of Elah's story, his actions, and lasting legacy documented in the book of the Chronicles of Israel's Kings? During the 27th year of Asa's reign over Judah, Zimri ruled for 7 days in Tirzah. Everyone was encamped around Gibbethon, which was in possession of the Philistines, preparing to lay siege. All those camped out heard the rumor. Zimri plotted to kill the king, and he had succeeded in his scheme. So that day, the entire community of Israel appointed Omri, the military leader and Zimri's commander, to be Israel's king until a permanent king was given power. Omri and the entire community of Israel abandoned their plans in Gibbethon and laid siege on Tirzah. When Zimri perceived that the city had been taken over, he panicked and ran into the highest fortress in the king's house and set fire to the house around him. He burned himself alive in the house because of the abhorrent wickedness he had committed in the Eternal's eyes. He had walked the wicked path of Jeroboam, causing the Israelites to live sinful lives. Is not the rest of Zimri's story, his actions, and the record of his secret plot documented in the book of the Chronicles of Israel's Kings? The community of Israel was split up into two separate groups. One group embraced Tibni, Ginath's son, as king. The other group embraced Omri as king. The group that followed Omri as king was more powerful and defeated the people who followed Tibni, Ginath's son, as king. Tibni died and Omri inherited the throne. During the 31st year of Asa's reign over Judah, Omri took over Israel's throne. He reigned 12 years. 6 of those years were in Tirzah. He purchased Samaria hill from Shemer for 150 pounds of silver. He developed a city on the hill and named the city Samaria after Shemer, the man from whom he had purchased the hill. Omri committed evil in the Eternal's eyes. He was more wicked than any wicked king who had lived before him, and there were a lot of wicked kings who lived before him. He embraced the wicked path of Jeroboam, Nebat's son, causing the Israelites to live sinful lives. Their worthless gods caused the wrath of the eternal God of Israel to boil. Is not the rest of Omri's story, his actions demonstrating his might and lasting legacy, documented in the book of Chronicles of Israel's Kings? Omri left this world to sleep with his fathers and was laid to rest in Samaria. His son Ahab then inherited the throne. Omri's son Ahab took over Israel's throne during the 38th year of Asa's reign over Judah. Ahab, Omri's son, ruled Israel in Samaria 22 years. Ahab, Omri's son, committed evil in the Eternal's eyes. He was more wicked than all the wicked kings who lived before him. Ahab was not content to commit the wickedness that Jeroboam, Nebat's son, had. He went even further, marrying the Sidonian princess Jezebel and offering his loyalties and worship to Baal. Jezebel was King Ethbaal's daughter, and Ethbaal was the king of the Sidonians. He constructed an altar in honor of Baal in Baal's temple in Samaria. Ahab crafted a sacred pole there as well. Ahab incited the wrath of the eternal God of Israel more than any king who had lived before him. During Ahab's reign, Hiel, the Bethelite, rebuilt Jericho. As he put down its foundations, he buried his firstborn Abiram beneath them. As he raised its gates, he buried his youngest son, Sega, beneath them, thinking this world ward of evil. This all happened just as the Eternal One said it would through the message he gave through Joshua, Nun's son. Chapter 17. We're moving right along. Elijah the Tishbite, one of the Gilead settlers, spoke to Ahab, "As the Eternal lives, the true God who gives life to the Israelites, the God whom I serve, no rain or dew will touch the earth unless I give word." My God. The Eternal One gave him this message: "I want you to travel away from this place and go east. Keep yourself hidden near the Cherith stream. East of the Jordan, you will have water from the stream during this drought. And I will tell the birds to take care of you while you are hiding there." Elijah did just as the Eternal had instructed him to do. He lived near the Cherith stream, east of the Jordan. The ravens did take care of him while he was there, just as the Lord said, bringing him a meal of bread and meat at sunrise and another meal of bread and meat at sunset. He satisfied his thirst by drinking from the stream. Soon the stream became dry because of the drought. The Eternal One gave him this message: "Get up and travel to Zarephath. It is in the possession of Sidon, which is outside Israel. Remain there and do not leave for any reason. There is a widow in Zarephath whom I have told to take care of you." Elijah got up and immediately traveled to Zarephath. He arrived at the city gate, and at that moment, a widow was picking up sticks nearby. Elijah said, "Please bring me some water in a jar to quench my thirst." As she fetched the water, "Also, could you please bring me a piece of bread?" The woman said, "As certain as the Eternal One, your true God, lives, I don't have any bread. In fact, I am starving. I don't have anything except for a bit of flour in a bowl and a few drops of oil in a jar. I was gathering sticks when you arrived to make fire so that my son and I could eat one last bite of food and then die. It's all over for us." Elijah said, "I assure you that it's not over for you yet." My God. I assure you that is not over for you yet. Don't be afraid. Continue what you were doing, but make a small bread cake for me first and bring it here to me. Then you and your son may eat your own bread cakes. This is the message of the Eternal God of Israel. The flour and the oil will not run out until the moment when the Eternal showers the earth with rain." She did exactly as Elijah had instructed her to do, and everyone who lived in her house had food for days. The bowl of flour and the jar of oil did not run out, just as the Eternal had said through Elijah. A little while later, the son of the woman, the house's mistress, grew fatally ill. His illness grew so intense that eventually he stopped breathing. He was dead. The woman said to Elijah, "Why did this happen? What wickedness have I committed against you, man of God? Are you here as a reminder of past sin? Is that why my son died?" Elijah said, "Bring your son to me." Elijah then took the dead boy out of her arms, carried him upstairs to his own room, and laid him on his own bed. Elijah said, "Oh, my true God, the Eternal, have you brought this tragic death upon the son of the widow who is looking after me?" If so, why would you do this to a woman who is serving you? Elijah stretched himself out over the boy 3 different times, and he cried out to the Eternal again. Elijah said, "Oh, my true God, the Eternal, I beg you to bring this boy back to life." The Eternal heard Elijah's plea, and the boy was brought back to life. Elijah brought the boy back down to his mother, who was waiting anxiously in the house. Elijah said, "Your son lives again." The woman, rejoicing, said, "I now fully trust you are a man of God, and that the truth of the word of the Eternal dwells in your mouth." Chapter 18, one of my favorites. God is on our side, y'all. Many days passed, and the word of the Eternal visited Elijah during the 3rd year of the drought. The Eternal One said, "Go now and reveal yourself to Ahab. When you do, I will bring rain on the earth." God said it. Elijah then went to reveal himself to Ahab. During this time, there was a dangerous shortage of food in Samaria, and Ahab had summoned Obadiah to come to him. Obadiah was the coordinator of Ahab's palace and was wholly devoted to the Eternal. Back when Jezreel was murdering all the prophets of the Eternal, Obadiah had given 100 prophets refuge. There were 2 caves in which he hid the prophets, 50 prophets in each cave. He provided them with food and water during this time. Ahab said to Obadiah, "Search through the land and visit all the springs and streams that run through the ravines. See if you can find any grass on which we can allow our horses and mules to graze, so that they may stay alive for as long as possible. Do this so that we don't have to kill our own beasts." Ahab and Obadiah split up the regions they were going to explore, and they both traveled in different directions to save time. While Obadiah was exploring the land, suddenly Elijah came upon him. Obadiah knew who he was, a prophet, and he fell on his face before Elijah. Obadiah said, "I can't believe it's really you, Master Elijah." Elijah said, "Yes, it is I. Go now and give this message to your king. Elijah has arrived." Obadiah said, "What is this? What is the purpose of this? Have I wronged you or God? Why do you put your servant in a dangerous spot with Ahab? Ahab will most certainly kill me. As surely as your true God, the Eternal, lives, there is not a single country or kingdom that Ahab has not searched for you. Whenever a country said that you were not there, Ahab made them swear an oath that you were not nowhere to be found. Now you are asking me to give him your message. Look, Elijah has arrived. I don't know where the Spirit of the Eternal is going to lead you after I depart from you. In fact, I am certain if I tell Ahab that you have arrived, he will take you somewhere else. And if you are nowhere to be found, then I will be put to death. Since I, your servant, was young, all of my worship and devotion has gone to the Eternal One. Don't you know, my master, what I did during the time that Jezebel was murdering all the Eternal One's prophets? I gave 100 prophets refuge. I hid them away in 2 caves, 50 prophets in each, and I provided them with food and water. Even after all that I have done for the Eternal One, you asked me to give my king the message. Look, Elijah has arrived. He will surely kill me." Elijah said, "Do not fear for your life, as certain as the life of the Eternal, commander of heavenly armies, whom I serve, I will reveal myself to Ahab on this very day. You have nothing to worry about." Obadiah approached Ahab and gave him Elijah's message. Ahab immediately went to find Elijah. Ahab, seeing Elijah, said, "There you are. I thought I perceived a troublemaker in Israel." Elijah said, "Hypocrite, I have caused no mischief in Israel. It is you and your family who are guilty of the very thing you accuse me of. You have turned your back on the laws of the Eternal and abandoned your devotion to him. Instead, you have given yourselves to the Baals, the masters of pagan nations. Now I want you to gather the entire community of Israel and send them to Mount Carmel to meet with me. I have a message for them. Be sure to gather the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of the goddess Asherah, the ones who fill their mouths and stomachs with food from Jezebel's table." Ahab did as Elijah asked, sent word throughout the entire community of Israel, and gathered all the prophets atop Mount Carmel. Elijah, approaching the people, said, "How much longer will you sit on the fence, refusing to make a decision between the Lord and Baal? If you believe the Eternal One is the true God, then devote yourselves entirely to him. If you believe Baal is your master, then devote yourselves entirely to him." All the people who were gathered together atop Mount Carmel were completely silent. They didn't know what to say to this. Elijah said, "I am the last remaining prophet of the Eternal. Baal has 450 prophets. Let us do a test to reveal the true quality of our deities. Bring us 2 young bulls, the common sacrifice to your master, whom you depict as a bull. The prophets of Baal may choose first which bull they want. They will kill it, chop it up, and prepare it for a fire by placing it above wood, but they will not light it. I will do the same with the other bull and prepare it for fire and place it above wood, but I will not light it. Then you call upon your God Baal, and I will call upon the Eternal. The God who answers with fire is the one true God." Everyone liked this idea and said, "This sounds like a worthy plan." Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, you have the pick of the bulls. Take the one you want and prepare it first, because there are many of you. Call upon your God, but do not set fire to the wood. The prophets of Baal picked out their bull and prepared it. They called upon Baal from dawn till noon, crying out, "Baal, answer us with fire." But there was no voice, no reply. Nothing happened. And all they did was dance around the altar they had built and cry out to an elusive God. At about midday, Elijah began provoking them. "You have to shout louder than that. The one to whom you cry out certainly must be a God. Perhaps he is daydreaming or napping or away from his heavenly throne. Perhaps he is in a deep sleep and you must wake him up. Shout louder." So all the prophets of Baal began to shout at the top of their lungs, pleading with all their might. They cut themselves with knives and swords and spears until they were covered in their own blood. Midday passed by, and the prophets of Baal kept on with their antics until it was time for the evening sacrifice. But still, there was no voice, no reply. No God heard them. Elijah said to the people, "Gather around me." So all the people gathered around him, and he fixed the Eternal's altar that had been torn down. Elijah gathered 12 stones, one for each of Jacob's tribes. Jacob was the one who wrestled with God, and whom the word of the Eternal One visited, saying, "Your name will be Israel." Elijah took the 12 stones and constructed an altar in honor of the Eternal One, and carved a ditch out around it large enough to hold 13 quarts of seed. He set up the wood, chopped up the bull, and placed it on top of the wood. Elijah said to the people, "Go get 4 big jars and fill them all up with water. Then pour the water out over the burnt offering and the wood. Now do the same thing again." And so they did it a second time. Elijah said, "All right, now do the same thing a third time." And so they did it a third time. The water covered the altar and even filled up the ditch. When it was time for offering the evening sacrifice, Elijah called out to the Eternal. Elijah, praying, said, "Eternal One, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, reveal yourself on this day as Israel's God. Make it known that I serve you and have done all this because you commanded it of me. Answer me, Eternal One. Reveal yourself so that everyone here will know that you, Eternal One, are the true God, the only God. Do it so that everyone knows you are turning the gaze of their hearts back to you again." Right then, the Eternal One's fire landed upon the altar. The flames consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, and the ground. The flames even drank up all the water in the ditch. When everyone witnessed this extraordinary power, they all put their faces to the ground in fear and awe and wonder. The people said, "The Eternal One is the true God. The Eternal One is the true God." Elijah said, "Seize all the prophets of Baal. Don't let a single one of them escape." So everyone grabbed hold of the prophets of Baal, and Elijah gave instruction for them to be taken to the Kishon Valley and killed immediately, no exceptions. Elijah then said to Ahab, "You should go fill your belly with food and water. I hear a heavy rain coming. Ahab did as Elijah instructed and went to eat and drink. Elijah journeyed to the peak of Mount Carmel. There he bowed down to the ground and placed his head between his knees. Elijah said to his servants, "Go now and look in the direction of the sea." The servant said, returning to Elijah, "I did as you asked, and there is nothing in the direction of the sea." Elijah gave him the same instruction 7 times. "Go back and look in the direction of the sea." The servant did as Elijah requested each time. And on the 7th time, he told Elijah, "A minuscule cloud as tiny as the hand of a man is ascending from the sea." Elijah said, "Go quickly and give a message to Ahab for me. Prepare your chariot and leave quickly before the rain gets torrential and keeps you from traveling." The sky became filled with dark, monstrous clouds. The wind grew wild. The heavy rain fell, and Ahab traveled quickly in his chariot to Jezreel. The strength of the Eternal filled Elijah. The prophet pulled up his garment around his thighs and sprinted ahead of Ahab the entire way to Jezreel. Chapter 19. Just a few more to go, y'all, and we'll be done with First Kings. I love that story. I ministered from that Friday night. Chapter 19. When Ahab arrived in Jezreel, he told Jezebel about everything that had taken place. He told her how Elijah had executed the prophets of Baal with a sword, and she became furious. Jezebel sent an urgent message to Elijah. "May the gods kill me, and worse, if I haven't killed you the way you killed their priests by this time tomorrow. Your end is near, Elijah." Terrified, Elijah quickly ran for his life. He traveled the length of Israel in one day and finally arrived at Beersheba, the southern point of God's territory, which is in Judah. When he arrived, he instructed his servants to remain there while he sought solitude. He journeyed into the desert for one day and then decided to rest beneath the limbs of a broom tree. There he prayed that his life would be over quickly and that he would die there beneath the tree. Elijah said, "I'm finished, Eternal One. Please end my life here and now, even though I have failed and I am no better than my ancestors." Elijah then laid himself down under the broom tree and entered into a deep sleep. While he was sleeping, a heavenly messenger came and touched him and gave him instructions. "Get up and eat," he said. Elijah looked and found a bread cake sitting over charcoal near his head. There was also a jar of water. He ate the food and drank the water, and then he lay back down. The Eternal's messenger visited him again, touched him, and gave him more instructions. The heavenly messenger said, "Get up and eat. Your journey ahead is great, and you need plenty of nourishment." Elijah got up and ate the food and drank the water. His body felt strong again, and he journeyed for 40 more days and 40 more nights to Horeb, God's mountain where Moses received the 10 directives. When he arrived at Horeb, he walked into a cave and rested for the night. The Eternal One said to Elijah, "Why are you here, Elijah? What is it that you desire?" Elijah said, "As you know, all my passion has been devoted to the Eternal One and God of heavenly armies. The Israelites have abandoned your covenant with them. They have torn down every single one of your altars, and they have executed by the sword all those who prophesy in your name. I am the last remaining prophet, and they now seek to execute me as well." Eternal One said, "Leave this cave and go stand on the mountainside in my presence." The Eternal One passed by him. The mighty wind separated the mountains and crumbled every stone before the Eternal. This was not a divine wind, for the Eternal was not within the wind. After the wind passed through, the earthquake shook the earth. This was not a divine quake, for the Eternal was not within this earthquake. After the earthquake was over, there was a fire. This was not a divine fire, for the Eternal was not within this fire. After the fire died out, there was nothing but the sound of a calm breeze. And through this breeze, a gentle, quiet voice entered into Elijah's ears. He covered his face with his cloak and went to the mouth of the cave. Suddenly, Elijah was surprised. The Eternal One said, "Why are you here, Elijah? What is it that you desire?" Elijah says, "As you know, all my passion has been devoted to the eternal God of heavenly armies. The Israelites have abandoned your covenant with them. They have torn down every one of your altars, and they have executed all who prophesy in your name by the sword. I am the last remaining prophet, and they now seek to execute me as well. They won't stop." The Eternal One said, "Travel back the same way you traveled here, but continue north to the desert of Damascus. There I want you to anoint Hazael as Aram's king, Yehu Nimshi's son as Israel's king, and Elisha, Shaphat's son, as Abel Meholah, to replace you as prophet. Yehu will execute anyone who escapes from Hazael, and Elisha will execute all who escape from Yehu. I will keep for myself the 7,000 Israelites who have not bowed down to Baal or offered him kisses." Elijah journeyed to find Elisha, Shaphat's son. He found Elisha in the field where 12 pairs of oxen were being worked. Elisha was with the last pair. Elijah wrapped his cloak, his token of spiritual power, around Elisha. And Elisha abandoned his oxen and chased after Elijah. "Elisha, before I leave, allow me to tell my parents goodbye, and I will journey with you." Elijah said, "Go then, tell them goodbye. What have I done to you?" Elisha returned, but not to his parents. He killed his oxen. Then he used the equipment, harness, yoke, and reins to prepare a fire and cook all the ox meat. He offered the food to everyone, and they feasted. Elisha then joined Elijah and became his apprentice. Chapter 20. Just 3 more to go, y'all. Meanwhile, Benadad, Aram's king, gathered his entire army to lay siege to Samaria. He was accompanied by 32 other kings, as well as a large group of horses and chariots. He waged war against Samaria. Benadad then instructed his messengers to travel to see Ahab, Israel's king, inside the city. Messengers to Ahab said, "This is a message from Benadad. All of your treasures, your silver and your gold belong to me. Your finest wives and healthiest children belong to me as well." Ahab's response was, "It is exactly as you say, my lord and king. My life and everything that belongs to me are in your possession." The messengers came back to Ahab and gave him a new message. They said, "This is the reply from Benadad to your submission. Did I not tell you to give me all your treasures, your silver and gold, and your finest wives and healthiest children? None of it belongs to you. It's all mine. Now I am sending some of my servants to do search of your house and the houses of your servants. They will be there in about 24 hours, and they will take everything that catches their eyes." Israel's king gathered up all the elders of Israel and explained the situation to them. Ahab said, "I need your help figuring out what to do. King Benadad is trying to cause problems. He demanded that my finest wives and healthiest children and all my silver and gold become his possession, and I submitted to his wish. Elders and Israelites don't do what he says. Ignore him." Ahab then gave a new message for the messengers to take back to Benadad. Ahab's message was, "Tell my lord the king, everything you asked at the beginning I will do, but I cannot do this new thing you ask of me. It is too much." The messengers left and gave Ahab's message to Benadad. Benadad's response was, "I will forfeit my life to the gods to do whatever they please with me. If I leave even enough of the dirt on the ground of Samaria to support those who serve and follow me." Ahab said, "Give Benadad this message It is foolish for a man who is putting in armor to brag like a man who has won a battle and is taking off his armor. When Benadad received this message, he was drinking with other kings in the camp. He gave urgent instructions to his servants: get the army ready immediately. I've had enough of Ahab. The army prepared for battle against the city. About this time, a prophet entered into the presence of Ahab, who was Israel's king. The prophet said, this is the Eternal's message. Have you laid eyes upon the great army that has risen up against you? They look like an impossible opponent, but observe what is about to take place. I am going to give you victory over them on this day. Then you will know that I am the Eternal One. Ahab said, I can't comprehend how such a victory could occur. Their army is massive. How is this going to happen? The prophet said, this is the Eternal's message. The young officers of the provincial leaders will do it for you. Ahab says, who is going to begin the fight and lead us into battle? The prophet says, you are. Ahab then gathered up all the young officers of the provincial leaders, and there were 232 in all. Then he gathered together everyone else, including the Israelites. There were 7,000 in all. They set out at noon. While they did this, Benadad was drinking alcohol excessively in the camp with the other 32 kings who served him. The young officers of the provincial leaders approached first. When the patrol of scouts Benadad had sent out came back, they reported to him. The scouts said, men have traveled here from Samaria. Benadad said, I don't care whether they come in peace or with motives of war. Take them all as captives and keep them alive. The young officers of the provincial leaders had left the city with their army. Following them, they proceeded to crush each man they faced. All the Arameans ran for their lives, and the Israelites went after them. Benadad said, Aram's king escaped on the horseback with some of his horsemen. Israel's king pursued the Arameans, defeating their horses and chariots, crushing many Arameans. The prophet approached Israel's king. The prophet said, go and keep yourself fit, because at the end of the year, Aram's king is going to come back and wage war against you. Prepare for what is to come. Benadad's servants said, when we fought them in the mountains, they won because their gods are the mountain gods. But if we fight them on flat land, then we are sure to win. Therefore, evacuate the royal leaders, place all the civilian military leaders in place of the ineffectual royalty, and assemble an army exactly like the one you lost. Replace every lost horse with a new horse and every lost chariot with a new chariot. We will battle on flat land, and we are sure to win because we will be stronger than they will be. Benadad listened to his servants and did everything they said to do, dismissing the royal leaders and rebuilding the army. In the spring of the year, Benadad assembled the Arameans and waged war against Israel at Aphek. All the Israelites assembled and prepared and went out to meet the Arameans for battle. The camp of the Israelites looked like two tiny herds of goats compared to the Aramean army which filled the entire land. A man of God approached Israel's king. The man of God said, this is the Eternal's message. The Arameans have proclaimed that the Eternal is only a mountain God and not a God of the flat land. Therefore, I am going to give you a great victory over them. Then you will know that I am the Eternal One. They camped out across from each other for 7 days, and when the seventh day arrived, the battle began. The Israelites crushed 100,000 Aramean warriors in a single day. All those who escaped ran into the city of Aphek. A great wall collapsed on them and killed 27,000 men. Benadad escaped to the city and hid himself in a secret chamber. Ben-Hadad's servant said, "The kings of Israel have a reputation for being merciful. Allow us to dress ourselves appropriately for surrender. We will put sackcloth around our waists and ropes around our heads. Then we will go to meet Israel's king and hopefully salvage your life." The servants dressed accordingly. They put sackcloth around their waists and ropes around their heads. Then they approached Israel's king. Ben-Hadad's servants said, this is a message from Ben-Hadad, who proclaims he is in your service. I beg you to leave my life untouched. Ahab said, Ben-Hadad is not yet dead. I thought he had surely been killed. He is my brother. The servants watched carefully and perceived this to be a sign, and they replied with surprise. Ben-Hadad's servant said, "Yes, that's right, your brother Ben-Hadad." Ahab said, "Bring Ben-Hadad to me." Ben-Hadad came out of the city to Israel's king, and Ahab allowed him to come up into the royal chariot. Ben-Hadad said to Ahab, "I will return all the cities that my father took from your father. Lay your own streets in Damascus so you may market your goods there, just like the ones my father laid in Samaria." Ahab said, "Under this covenant, I will release you." So Ahab and Ben-Hadad entered into a covenant with one another. Then Ahab released Ben-Hadad. By the word of the Eternal, one of the prophet's sons made a request to another man. The son said, "Hit me." The man said, "No." The prophet's son said, "Because you have denied a command of the Eternal, you will be killed by a lion the moment you leave my presence." Sure enough, the moment the man walked away, a lion killed him. The prophet's son said to another man, "Hit me." This man did as he was asked, and he bruised the prophet's son. The prophet left and waited on the side of the road of the king to come by. The prophet bandaged his eyes with a cloth so that the king would not recognize him. As soon as the king was near, the prophet shouted, "Your servant entered into the heart of war, and someone gave a man over to my possession and said, 'You are the guard of this man. If he escapes, then your life will replace his life, or you may pay 75 pounds of silver instead.' Your servant became busy with other work, doing this and doing that, and meanwhile the prisoner disappeared." Ahab said, "You have decided upon your own judgment, and so it shall be." The prophet then removed the cloth from his eyes, and Israel's king recognized him as one of the prophets. The prophet said, "This is the Eternal's message. You have allowed the man whom I was going to kill to escape. Your life will replace his life, and your people will take the place of his people." Israel's king, frustrated and bad tempered, returned to his house in Samaria. Chapter 21, just two more to go. After all this took place, Ahab, the king of Samaria, made a request to Naboth the Jezreelite, who owned a vineyard in Jezreel right next to Ahab's palace. Ahab said, "Your vineyard is near my house. Why don't you hand it over to me so I can make a vegetable garden out of it? I will trade you a better vineyard for it, or I can pay you if you prefer." Naboth said, "I'm sorry, the Eternal forbids that I give away any of my ancestors' inheritance, even to you." Ahab, frustrated and upset by Naboth's reply, went back into his house. Naboth the Jezreelite had replied, "I will not hand over my ancestors' inheritance to you." Ahab went to bed that night without eating anything. Jezebel, his wife, noticed this. Jezebel said, "What is wrong with you? Why are you not eating anything? This isn't like you." Ahab said, "I made a request to Naboth the Jezreelite. Hand over your vineyard to me, and I will pay you for it. Or I can trade you an even better vineyard for it." But he said, "I will not hand over my vineyard to you. The Lord forbids it." Jezebel says, "Are you not the king of all Israel? You can have anything you want. Get up and eat some bread. Let your heart be glad, for I will get Naboth the Jezreelite's vineyard for you." Jezebel composed letters, signed them with Ahab's name, and pressed his seal on them. She sent all these letters to the leaders and noblemen who lived in the city of Naboth. Jezebel's letters said, "Declare a time declare a time of fasting for all the people, put Naboth before all the people, and have two worthless men with questionable morals sit before him. Instruct these two base men to give testimony against Naboth by saying, You, Naboth, blaspheme both God and the king. After this testimony has been given, take Naboth outside and kill him with stones. The leaders and noblemen of the city did just as Jezebel instructed them in the letters. They declared a time of fasting for all the people, and they seated Naboth before all the people. The two worthless men sat in front of Naboth and bore witness against him by saying, Naboth blasphemed both God and the king. Then they brought him outside and killed him with stones. Two men said to Jezebel, Naboth has been executed by stoning. Jezebel said, hearing the news, Get up, Ahab, go and take Naboth the Jezreelite's vineyard as your own, the one he would not give you for money. It is now yours for the taking. For Naboth is now dead. When Ahab learned Naboth was no longer alive, Ahab got up and made his way down to Naboth the Jezreelite's vineyard to take it as his own. Meanwhile, the word of the Eternal One visited Elijah the Tishbite. The Eternal One said, Get up and go. Find Ahab, Israel's king in Samaria. Naboth has been killed because of the work of Jezebel. Right now, Ahab is in Naboth's vineyard, claiming it as his own. Tell him, this is the message of the Eternal One. Are you a murderer and a thief? Tell him, this is the message of the Eternal One. Beware, the dogs will slurp up your blood in the very spot where they licked up Naboth's blood. Ahab said, replying to Elijah, Have you discovered what I have done, my enemy? Elijah said, I have only discovered what you have done because you have sold your soul to wickedness in the Eternal's eyes. He says, I will send evil against you and blow you away. I will also separate you from every man in Israel, both free and enslaved. You will be all alone. I will destroy your house just as I did Jeroboam's house, Nebat's son, and Baasha's house, Ahijah's son. I will do this because your wickedness has provoked my wrath and because you have caused the Israelites to live sinful lives. The Eternal also has said a word about Jezebel. He has said, Jezebel will be devoured by dogs at the wall in Jezreel. Any of Ahab's servants who die in the city will be devoured by ravenous dogs, and any of Ahab's servants who die in the fields will be devoured by ravenous birds of heaven. There was no one in Israel like Ahab who sold himself and decided to commit evil in the Eternal's eyes because his wife Jezebel manipulated him to evil. Ahab was incredibly wicked, giving his life over to idols as the Amorites, whom the Eternal handed to the Israelites, had done. When Ahab heard all of this, he ripped off his clothing, dressed himself in sackcloth, and entered into a time of fasting. He rested in depression, wearing only sackcloth. The word of the Eternal One visited Elijah the Tishbite. Have you witnessed Ahab's repentance? He has shed his pride and wickedness and humbled his heart before me. Therefore, I will not send evil against his house while he is still alive. Instead, I will send it during the lifetime of his son. The final chapter, chapter 22. 3 years went by without Aram, Israel fighting at all. During the third year, Jehoshaphat, Judah's king, approached Israel's king. Ahab said to his servants, Don't you remember that Ramoth Gilead is yours? But we have done nothing to take it back from Aram's king. To Jehoshaphat, he said, I am going to wage war against Ramoth Gilead. Will you join me? Jehoshaphat said, I am with you. I will do what you do. My troops will be your troops. My horses will be your horses. But first, ask the Eternal for his wisdom and guidance in this matter. Israel's king assembled the 400 prophets. Ahab said, Should I wage war against Ramoth Gilead or not? Prophets said, Yes, you should. The Lord will give the king victory in this matter. Jehoshaphat said, I need counsel. Is there a prophet of the Eternal present whom we can ask for advice? Ahab said, There is one prophet of the Eternal, but I despise him. He prophesies terrible things about me instead of good things. His name is Micaiah, Imla's son. Jehoshaphat said, the king shouldn't speak as such. He is the Lord's prophet. Israel's king summoned a commander and gave him instructions to find Micaiah, Imla's son, quickly. At the threshing floor inside the gate of Samaria, Israel's king and Jehoshaphat, Judah's king, were both sitting on their thrones, their own thrones, wearing ornate royal robes, holding court, while all the prophets were spouting out prophecies in their presence. Zedekiah, Chenaan's son, had crafted iron horns for himself and spoke. Zedekiah, this is the Eternal's message. Take these horns to gore the Arameans until they are destroyed. The prophet said, travel to Ramoth Gilead and flourish. The Eternal One will hand it over to the king. The commander said to Micaiah, the prophet's message is pleasing to the king. May your message be as pleasing as theirs. Micaiah said, as certain as the Eternal, I will say only what he commands me to say, nothing more and nothing less. Ahab, as Micaiah approached him, says, Micaiah, should we or should we not wage war against Ramoth Gilead? We need your final say either way. Micaiah said, do as you say and be successful. The Eternal One will give it to the king. Ahab said, how many times are you going to make me ask you to give me a true message from the Eternal? Micaiah said, I saw a vision in Israel. In it, Israel will spread all throughout the mountains, wandering aimlessly. They were like lost sheep without a shepherd to guide them. In the vision, the Eternal said, these sheep have no shepherd. May they all go back to their own homes and live in peace. Ahab said to Jehoshaphat, didn't I warn you? Didn't I say that he would give unfavorable prophecies toward me? Micaiah said, you should heed the Eternal's message. I saw a vision of the Eternal One sitting on his throne with the heavenly army surrounding him on all sides. In the vision, the Eternal said, who will be the one to entice Ahab into the battle at Ramoth Gilead so he may die there? Everyone had a different opinion about who should do the task. Right then, a spirit revealed itself to the Eternal and said, I will do it. I will draw Ahab into battle. The Eternal One asked, how do you plan on doing this? The Spirit answered, I will become a spirit of deception within the words of his prophets. The Eternal spoke again, I like this idea. You will succeed at drawing him into battle. Proceed quickly. Therefore, the Eternal has placed the spirit of deception in the mouths of all your prophets, and he has sent destruction upon you. You will lose. Zedekiah, Chenaan's son, hit Micaiah on the cheek. Zedekiah said, that's impossible. How is it that the Eternal Spirit communicated to you without knowing about it? Micaiah said, you will understand when the time comes for you to hide in a secret chamber. Ahab said, in the meantime, take Micaiah back to Amon, the city's governor, and to Joash, the king's son. Give them this message. This is the command of Israel's king. Lock this man behind bars and give him only crumbs of bread and drops of water until I come back safely from battle. Micaiah said, all right, if you come back alive and in one piece, you will know that the Eternal did not communicate his message through me. All you people listen carefully. Israel's king and Jehoshaphat, Judah's king, waged war against Ramoth Gilead. Ahab said to Jehoshaphat, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put on a disguise and enter into battle, but you are going to dress in your normal robes. Fearing that Micaiah might be right, Israel's king put on a disguise and entered battle. Aram's king commanded the 32 captains in charge of all the chariots. King of Aram said to his captains, don't waste your time fighting with any important or unimportant person. Fight only with Israel's king. He's the one we want dead. When the chariot captains laid eyes upon Jehoshaphat and saw the robes he was wearing, they said to themselves, this must be Israel's king. Only a king wears such robes. They engaged in battle with him, and Jehoshaphat screamed for his life. To Jehoshaphat's immense relief, when the chariot captains realized that this was not Israel's king, they left him alone. In the meantime, One warrior shot a random arrow from his bow up into the air, and the arrow happened to strike inside a joint of Israel's king's armor. Ahab said to his charioteer, "Get me out of this battle quickly. I am hurt badly." The fighting continued throughout the entire day. Meanwhile, the king was propped up inside his chariot before all the Arameans, so they would think he still led Israel. And he died that night. Blood dripped out from where the arrow had pierced him, and it stained the bottom of the chariot. At sunset, word spread throughout the entire army: Israel's king is dead. Go back to where you came from. Return to your native cities and countries. Israel's king died and was transported to Samaria, where he was laid to rest. They cleaned the blood out of his chariot at the Samaritan pool, where all the prostitutes and promiscuous women bathed in the blood-stained water, and the dogs licked up his blood, just as the Eternal said they would. Is not the rest of Ahab's story, all his actions, and the ivory house and cities he constructed, documented in the book of Chronicles of Israel's kings? Ahab left the world to sleep with his fathers and his son. Ahaziah then inherited the throne. Jehoshaphat's Asa's son became Judah's king during the 4th year of Ahab's reign in Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he received the throne. His reign lasted 25 years in Jerusalem. His mother was Azubah, Shilhi's daughter. Jehoshaphat was devoted to the Eternal, just as his father Asa was. He walked the good path and did what was good in the eyes of the Eternal One, but the high places were not torn down, and everyone still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. This wickedness still took place under Jehoshaphat's reign, though he did not inspire it. Jehoshaphat also made peace between himself and Israel's king. Is not the rest of Jehoshaphat's story, his mighty actions, and how he waged war, documented in the book of the Chronicles of Judah's king? He threw out the country. He threw out of the country all the prostitutes who remained from his father Asa's time. At that time, there was no king sitting on the throne in Edom, only a deputy. Jehoshaphat crafted ships modeled after those trading ships in Tarshish to travel to Ophir to gather gold, but the ships never made the trip because they wrecked at Ezion Geber. Ahaziah, Ahab's son, made a request to Jehoshaphat: "Allow my servants to accompany your servants on the ships." Jehoshaphat refused this request. Jehoshaphat left this world to sleep with his fathers and was laid to rest with his ancestors in his father's city, the city of David. Jehoshaphat's son, Jehoram, then inherited the throne. Ahaziah, Ahab's son, took over the throne of Israel in Samaria during the 17th year of Jehoshaphat's reign over Judah. Ahaziah's reign over Israel lasted 2 years. Ahaziah committed evil in the Eternal's eyes. He walked the wicked path of his father and mother and Jeroboam, Nebat's son, who caused the Israelites to live sinful lives. He gave his heart and life to Baal and offered his services and worship to him. This caused the Eternal God of Israel's wrath to be provoked, just as it had at the wickedness of his father. Did it. 58 books of the Bible. That was First Kings. We just finished. And tomorrow we will pick up at 2 Kings chapter 1 is where we'll begin tomorrow. I am not going to belabor the time because that time is far spent with the reading, but I will see you all tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for Morning Stir again. Amen, amen, amen. Be blessed, everybody. Thank you for those whomever that was that sowed a seed. God bless you. Love you with the love of God, and see you guys really soon.